The story of Jaguar Wright has been one of the most polarizing and controversial narratives to emerge in recent years, especially within the circles of music industry exposés and discussions around abuse, exploitation, and truth-telling. Once hailed as a brave voice speaking out against powerful figures like Diddy, Jay-Z, and others, Jaguar's credibility has now come under intense scrutiny, thanks largely to explosive revelations from Orlando Brown and Ali Carter, who have accused her of fabricating stories, profiting from lies, and even engaging in disturbing behavior involving the remains of her deceased son. What began as a crusade against corruption and predatory behavior in the entertainment world has spiraled into a tangled web of accusations, counter-accusations, and deep skepticism about who is telling the truth and who is merely capitalizing on chaos. Jaguar Wright, once seen as a fearless whistleblower, is now being exposed for allegedly twisting facts, exaggerating events, and manipulating people for attention and financial gain. It all started gaining serious traction when Ali Carter, another self-proclaimed truth seeker, came forward with shocking claims that Jaguar wasn't just embellishing her experiences, she was outright lying. Ali accused Jaguar of being a paid mole who masqueraded as an advocate for victims while secretly working to mislead the public. According to Ali, Jaguar would only release information after receiving payment, effectively turning real-life trauma into content currency. She claimed that if Jaguar truly cared about justice and exposing the truth, she wouldn't be demanding money before sharing what she knew. This accusation sent shockwaves through online communities that had previously supported Jaguar. Many began questioning whether they had been manipulated by someone who had positioned herself as a protector of truth and victim rights. The idea that someone could profit from pain while pretending to fight for justice was not just disappointing, it was infuriating. And yet, Ali argued, this was exactly what Jaguar had been doing for years. Adding fuel to the fire was Orlando Brown, best known for his role in That's So Raven and his own outspoken stance against industry corruption. Orlando didn't just back up Ali's claims, he went further, accusing Jaguar of something far more disturbing, practicing witchcraft using the ashes of her late son. During a tense interview between the three, Orlando confronted Jaguar directly, asking why she had blown the ashes of her deceased child onto him and others. At first, Jaguar tried to deflect, offering vague spiritual explanations and refusing to give a clear answer, but Orlando wasn't backing down. He revealed that he had initially planned to bail Jaguar out of jail after she was arrested, but changed his mind upon learning about these bizarre rituals. He described how she had poured the ashes of her son over people, claiming it had some kind of symbolic or magical meaning. Whether or not this was true, the implications were chilling and deeply unsettling. The conversation took a darker turn when Orlando brought up the death of his own younger brother. He accused Jaguar of disrespecting his family by throwing the ashes of her son at him and others while invoking his brother's name. "You threw my brother's bones in powder form like it was me," he said, visibly shaken. "What did that mean to you?" His tone was no longer confrontational, it was mournful, confused, and filled with betrayal. Jaguar continued to dance around the issue, never fully addressing the gravity of what she had done. Her responses became increasingly erratic, shifting between defensive posturing and cryptic spiritual references. At one point, she seemed to imply that Orlando himself was involved in occult practices, suggesting that he understood the deeper meaning behind her actions. But Orlando rejected this entirely, stating that whatever Jaguar was doing had nothing to do with any shared beliefs or traditions. The video of this confrontation quickly went viral, prompting widespread debate. Some viewers believed Orlando and Ali, arguing that Jaguar had been caught in a pattern of deception and manipulation. Others remained loyal to Jaguar, insisting that she was being targeted because she had spoken out against powerful individuals. Still, others questioned whether Orlando's accusations were rooted in personal vendettas rather than objective truth. What made the situation even more complicated was the fact that Jaguar had built her entire persona around being a savior figure, someone who walked women out of dangerous situations, stood up to predators, and exposed the darkest corners of the music industry. Yet according to Cassie's sworn testimony and other corroborated accounts, the so-called freak-offs that Jaguar claimed to rescue people from weren't the chaotic, large-scale orgies she often described. Instead, they were small, controlled encounters involving Diddy, Cassie, and male escorts, not the wild Hollywood-style parties depicted in movies like Eyes Wide Shut. So where did that leave Jaguar's narrative? If the freak-offs weren't the massive events she described, then her claim that she was saving women by walking them out fell apart. In reality, she hadn't saved anyone, and the few details she got right appeared to be exaggerated or taken from second-hand sources. This led many to believe that Jaguar had either fabricated much of her story or significantly embellished it to make herself seem more heroic. Ali Carter argued that Jaguar had become a master manipulator, someone who thrived off of Patreon donations, YouTube views, and public sympathy. They want you to think they're truth-tellers, Ally said, referring to people like Jaguar, but they're really just liars in truth-teller clothing. She claimed that whenever Jaguar ran low on funds, she would pop up with a new scandalous allegation, stirring drama and drawing attention back to herself. Meanwhile, Orlando painted a picture of someone who had used grief as a tool for manipulation, someone who had taken the tragic loss of her child and twisted it into something dark and exploitative. Whether or not this was true, the perception alone was enough to damage Jaguar's reputation beyond repair. Critics pointed out that this wasn't the first time Jaguar had faced accusations of dishonesty. Before Ally and Orlando came forward, there were already rumors swirling about inconsistencies in her past. She had once claimed to be close friends with major artists like Mary J. Blige and Jay-Z, claims that were later debunked by those very same individuals. She had also hinted at having insider knowledge of secret music industry dealings, yet none of her predictions or allegations ever materialized into verified truths. Now, with both Ally and Orlando publicly calling her out, the cracks in Jaguar's carefully curated image were widening. Fans who had once rallied behind her began distancing themselves, unsure of what to believe. Was she a fraud, as her detractors claimed, or was she simply another casualty of an industry that silenced whistleblowers and protected predators? One thing became increasingly clear: the line between truth and performance had blurred. In an era where social media influencers and independent journalists wield significant power, distinguishing genuine activism from performative outrage became harder than ever. People wanted answers, but they also craved drama, and in that space, storytellers like Jaguar thrived. Some defenders of Jaguar argued that even if parts of her story were exaggerated, the core issues she spoke about were still real. They insisted that predators like Diddy existed, that exploitation happened, and that regardless of Jaguar's motives, her voice had helped bring attention to these problems. Others countered that false claims only muddied the waters, making it harder for real survivors to be heard and believed. Ultimately, the fallout from this controversy left many feeling disillusioned. Trust in so-called truth-tellers eroded, and questions arose about how easily people could be manipulated by compelling narratives. Whether Jaguar Wright was a liar, a misguided activist, or a mixture of both remained a matter of heated debate. What is certain is that the exposure from Orlando Brown and Ally Carter changed everything. No longer could Jaguar operate unchallenged, spinning tales without consequence. The internet, once her greatest ally, had turned skeptical, and as more people began dissecting her statements and cross-referencing them with known facts, the foundation of her credibility began to crumble. In the end, the saga of Jaguar Wright serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked influence, the allure of conspiracy, and the fine line between truth and spectacle. It reminds us that not everyone who speaks out is a hero, and sometimes the loudest voices are the ones we should question the most. As the dust settles, one question lingers: was Jaguar ever telling the truth, or was everything just part of a well-crafted lie? Only time will tell whether her story will fade into obscurity or continue to haunt the conversations around celebrity misconduct and accountability. Either way, the impact of her rise and fall will not be forgotten anytime soon.